Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to Urgent Spotlight. My name is Azrul Mohamed Khalib. This is a series of online talk shows where we will be covering how the various policies and actions implemented during this period of crisis have impacted today's urgent issues related to women, workers' welfare, refugees, education, indigenous people, migrants, and for today's show, we're talking about the environment. The agenda for Urgent Spotlight is policy reform and holding the government, policy and decision makers, and yes, even you, members of the public, accountable. We are broadcasting live every Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 8:30 p.m. via the CSO Platform for Reform's Facebook page. The past 3 months have been tumultuous with all eyes and attention on the COVID-19 crisis. We are now in the Recovery Movement Control Order, which is expected to last until the 31st August. Every single effort has been put into place by the government to respond to this epidemic. Yet one could argue that some priorities have actually slipped to the side and become less of a priority, both for the public as well as the government. We are reminded that while the 2020 budget, which was passed by Parliament last year, emphasized the importance of environmental protection, as a whole, the environmental sector made up only 0.7% of the budget. As yet, we do not yet know how this brand new government views environmental issues. Environment was number 12 in terms of priority, below education, health, transportation, and housing. And in comparison, the average European Union expenditure on the environment is 1.6% of government spending, with the Netherlands spending 3.2% of its budget on environmental protection. Yet we have had the bauxite disaster in Pahang, which occurred from 2015 to 2016, Sungai Kim Kim in Johor recently, which resulted in hundreds of people in numerous communities falling sick and developing health complications. It can be argued that a poorly managed environment can in fact affect our most fundamental basic needs, security and health. Despite wake-up call after wake-up call, events such as Sungai Kim Kim and the bauxite disaster, we are akin to deliberately putting our hands on the snooze button in pursuit of short-term gains such as mineral revenue and avoiding the costs of complying to environmental regulations. As the government's own inconsistent and often poor track record in enforcing such regulations been partly responsible for the mess that we are in, is the Malaysian public actually apathetic when it comes to environmental issues? To help answer these questions and to provide some insight into what is happening today on issues relating to the environment, we have with us this evening Dr. Maketab Mohamed. Dr. Maketab is a former professor of water quality and water quality modeling from the University of Technology Malaysia. He is an associate fellow of the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia. He is, in fact, a past president of the Malaysian Nature Society. He is an expert panel member for the detailed environmental impact assessment, for which we're glad to have him, as we will discuss the EIA later during this show. Dr. Maketab, welcome. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So for viewers out there, please do send your questions and we will try to get your questions answered by Dr. Maketab. For those who don't know, Dr. Maketab is wearing a very stylish hat. Looks like something that you wear going into the jungle. So I think he's all ready to go. So let's start the ball rolling, shall we?
Yeah.
First question for you, Dr. Maketab. Let me ask. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best and 1 being the lowest, how would you rate Malaysia regarding on how it looks and treats issues related to the environment? Do you think there is a struggle to reconcile or choose between conservation and development?
Well, I don't want to be too harsh because when I got your question, I was mulling between 4 and 5. But I will say we are basically average because I've seen many countries at the lower end. But one way or another, we have a long way to go. Well, I mean, because one of the main negative part of Malaysia is that our general public, our own people are basically what I call it, not yet, or what I call it, aware of what kind of things they need to be done. They're still waiting for people to do for them, So we are not similar to Denmark or the Scandinavian countries or Germany and things like that. But when you say on the basis of the grades from 1 to 10, they are already 9 or close to 10. But basically, I think we are still in 5. Most Asian countries are basically within that kind of grading, except maybe Singapore. Maybe Singapore a little bit higher than that, maybe 7 or 8, something like that. Yeah, thank you.
But Doctor, one of the things that we saw was that we are being seen actually as a leader when it comes to the environment because we've committed to the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, the Paris Agreement of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and we have actually committed to 45% emissions reduction by 2030.
Yeah.
So, and also just I think last year or just recently, it was announced that environmental education will now actually be part of the school curriculum in Malaysia in the next couple of years. So isn't this something to celebrate? Isn't this something that is quite positive when it comes to Malaysia making progress when it comes to environmental issues?
Yeah, I'm always very pro environmental education. When I was with MNS, one of the things we want to promote, basically the environmental education is critical. That was like 5-6 years ago. But I mean, that until now, I mean, not really implemented. One thing I want to say here is that promises are promises, or whatever the thing want to do. The thing is what is really the promise is really delivered or not. When we talk about all the accords and things like that, we are saying that that what basically promises to ensure that the carbon emission decrease and all that, but we still didn't deliver that what we're supposed to do. That is the thing that we have to look for. I mean, whatever the government promise, whatever they talk in the global sense that they want to do this, to do that, basically not 100% delivered yet. We are waiting for that delivery first.
And speaking of delivery, Doctor, I think for the moment, if we could take a pause on the show for a moment, if you could just disconnect and reconnect back onto the show, because your visual is quite hazy. So if I could just ask you to disconnect and then reconnect, we'll wait for you to come back.
Is that okay now?
Yes.
I do that off, on again. Is that okay?
We don't have your visual. If you could just disconnect from the feed and then reconnect back.
You mean hang up totally?
Yes. Yes. Hang up and then come back on.
Okay. Are we okay now?
Yes. Thank you, Prof. We're back on air. Thank you. We just had a little bit of a technical problem there. Usually it happens when we are dealing with these online webinars, but
understood.
I can see your hat now, very clear.
All right. Okay. All right.
Okay. So let's just continue on.
Uh-huh.
So basically, one of the things that we have heard about is that the government is trying to increase its level of commitments to environmental issues, especially when we talk about climate change. But as I mentioned at the very beginning, during my introduction just now, we see that when you look at the budget, it's number 12 on the scale. It's 0.7% of the budget. And when you compare it against other countries, which are 1.6, 3.2, Malaysia is not even 1% of the budget. Does allocations in the national budget mean anything in terms of how we look at environment issues?
Yeah, I mean, you are basically correct on that. When one of the thing that when we see the commitment of the budget, we know that the government is not serious. Basically, through the years, we've seen the budget as low or even lower than what you're talking about.
So, even lower? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we see it always what we call it just lip service. Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. So we hear for the environment, we do this with that. But when it comes to the real thing, when you say environment, also it covers many things. When you talk about the budget for Pihilitan, who takes care of the wildlife, even for river management, which is not just cover Department of Environment alone, it must also cover the ID or JPS, how to take care of the rivers and things like that. So, and then this thing is always conflicting. You say, oh, okay, the promises are there. I mean, every year we heard the promise, but the actual funds very limited. That is why when we talk about the environmental education in school, first we used to have the environmental education before until it was basically cut, and for many years without anything about environmental education. Actually, when you talk about Europe or Japan, you're talking kids that from preschool having environmental education. In Malaysia, what we're talking, we're not even talking about in high school. So we cannot compare to those countries. And the awareness must be there from the beginning. Like we were saying, teach the kids from the cradle, about the necessity of the environment. If not, they say, oh, environment not critical, it's not important, and things like that. And we have adult thinking that way nowadays. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying Sorry, no, sorry, go ahead. And I mean, if you think about in Europe, maybe some industrialists maybe don't think about the environment. But I mean, if the education gone for 1 or 2 generations, then we have whole 1 or 2 generation of people that always thinking about climate change and things like that. In Malaysia, I think a lot of people are still in denial about the climate change. They don't care about the environment. Oh, I want my money. I want my stash of cash first. That's better. I can go shopping. They don't think about the future generation. They don't think about the grandchildren and all that.
Let's talk about this stash of cash. I mean, one of the things that is sort of proof of whether or not the government takes environmental issues seriously is on the issue of logging. And so logging seems to be like a never-ending problem, which always seems to be there. And then you have changes in both the federal and state governments, and maybe there's a halt, a pause on the logging. But then suddenly we have announcements from state governments that have previously decided to stop logging. Now they want to go back to logging. And a lot of people are asking, what's wrong with conducting logging to fill state government coffers for the benefit of the people of the state? And what do you think are the most problematic areas when it comes to this issue? Is it Kelantan, Sabah, Sarawak? And Kelantan is famous for teh tarik water when it comes to the water supply over there. Is there a link between the delivery of clean water to these areas with deforestation, Doctor?
Well, basically, logging you cannot take away from our way of life in Malaysia, because the what you call it, our woods are one of the best in the world. Meranti, or in Sabah, Sarawak, you had the belian, all that. Always people from Japan and China and all over the world want those kind of wood. But the thing is, how do you do it? The term they've been using so many times, sustainable. But are they following the methodology of sustainable? The term sustainable is that you can take a few, plant a few, or maybe the one that you plant will grow for the next generation. If you take more than you can replace, then that's not sustainable. That's the issue. The thing is, while doing the process of logging, how do you do it? One of the SOP says, please do not log for trees that are within within the buffer zone of the rivers, because this will impact the water quality. I mean, one of the requirements. But that's basically not possible in Malaysia, because most of the big trees basically near the river, because our trees need the water and all that. So all the large trees, or the one that wanted, always close to the river. So that one is not sustainably carried out. I mean, that even sustainability thing, the issue later that even comes out into the management of plantation, rubber plantation, especially in Sabah, in Sarawak, in Peninsula. They are basically a guideline not to plant oil palm within certain area. But even big name, I don't have to name names here, always doing that. When I point to them, they got real mad at me, and they say, how do you get into my plantation? It's not that they are doing that, they're trying to hide from us, but basically not many people are taking care of the buffer zone. But going back to your sorry.
No, so where are the problematic areas? Is it in Peninsula, Sabah, Sarawak?
All over the place. Where the thing is, I say, the problem with logging, that everybody thinks that it is their ATM. That's the term many NGO are going to say. Their ATM. They want money, bring the card, chuchu, and you got the money. Same thing. I need some money. The forest out there. They don't think it is belong to the whole of Malaysian people. It belong to them. So keep off. Shut up. Don't say anything what I'm doing, because this is mine. That is the attitude of whether state government, especially state government, because basically forest or land or water are basically state matter. So they say, hands off, this is mine, my ATM, So nobody listen. So whether you say Kelantan or Pahang or Sabah, Sarawak, still the same, the methodology. If they are really, you want to be ikhlas, you want to be really truthful about it, they can sure keep logging, but at certain minimum areas. Follow the guideline. Then we're okay. But basically, not many people, not many states want to follow the guideline. Although with all the
even the states themselves are not wanting to follow the guidelines. So the government themselves are not really wanting to follow. And one of the points that are a requirement for any kind of developments is the need to have environmental impact assessments. And you yourself have been a member on expert panels to basically evaluate EIA. Now, the EIA, as we know, is different in Sabah and Sarawak and West Malaysia. But one of the things that is necessary is that we would agree that it should be available, it should be accessible to public scrutiny. So, you just demonstrated very clearly how governments themselves don't take the kind of environmental impact assessments necessarily seriously. So how do we expect the public to treat EIAs and the value it brings to issues or debates concerning sustainable development?
Well, when you say EIA or EIS, same thing, environmental impact um, assessment or statement, basically the same process. The whole methodology, the whole setup of EIS or EIA are basically what you call it good for the environment. If you follow the guideline, do it right, like you say, open to the public and all that. But the thing is, it become the means to an end. That's all. Sometimes, even consultant just willing to make money. Okay, one EIA costs 1 million. Make money. Forget about the environment, and they're willing to cheat on the data and things like that. I've read some report looking for that way. If they are truthful, we have been asking for a long time that the detailed AIA shouldn't be paid by the proponent. They have not been done. We have not changed to that yet. That means if a consultant is be paid by the proponent, they are basically enamored or what you call berhutang to the proponent. Now you don't do it right. The EIA not tak lulus, no money
Won't
for you.
get paid.
But but basically we are asking for a long time. The money should be go into the pool controlled by DOE, an independent pool. Whether the report is pro or against the final what you call the project itself or not, it does not matter. It's the work of the consultant to report the truth. But it never happened.
But you're just saying that basically that EIAs are basically a situation where it's really about doing business, and that if the EIAs are not favorable, then the people involved won't get paid, and that even the state government may not necessarily see it in the best interest for the state to consider the EIA. So
yes. But I'm saying that I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but the thing is, that's why I'm saying we have to have that methodology when it's not the payment is not controlled by the proponent. It's controlled by a certain mechanism.
Even when the EIA requirements are violated, and you have instances of logging companies, which has resulted in erosion and silt in the cases of Sungai Lembing, Sungai Kelantan, etc. You have already in law, Section 34 of the Environment Quality Act, there's a fine of not more than 500,000 and a jail term of not more than 5 years. So compared to the damage that has been inflicted onto the environment, is this existing legislation have any kind of enforcement value at all? Is it actually a toothless tiger?
Well, you said it. That's the word that it's supposed to be. Basically the enforcement part that's critical. You say, okay, if you didn't follow the guideline that we're supposed to do, then you have to pay those fine. The enforcement's not there for the active. I mean, not only for logging, for many other things. Another one of the natural resources, what I call it, activity is mining. The same kind of thing. It does. The whether the AIA is followed or not, very minimal what I call it enforcement, both financial and maybe jail term, criminal, whatever. Everybody gone scot free, and that's why the problem you said just now. We have problem with all the activity above water intake for villagers and all that. Recently, we have in Pahang, Sungai Temau being polluted. Small community, maybe 500 account holders, but still costing them 5-6 years of problem, because both the activity, both mining and also the logging is upstream. So, I mean,
Doctor, knowing all that, is the and we have a person who's viewing asking a question: is then the EIA report still trustworthy? Yes or no?
Yes. I mean, with some black marks on it, but still you would need EIA. With EIA, you make it worse. You don't know what's coming up. EIA is a process whereby we know what they be built. Because another thing, like you said, it publicized. I mean, the public maybe don't have the expertise. That's why you need expert or whatever, or educated people to go and read through that and comment and things like that. But the process of having EIA also open up the whole thing. The only thing is that it's not implemented fully by the rulers of the day. I mean, if we follow the EIA guideline as needed, I think a lot of the problem can be avoided in the long run.
So one of the things that has been put into place by the previous government, and it put in a lot of resources and efforts towards the rehabilitation of the reputation of palm oil. It was promoting it as a sustainable and environmentally friendly cash crop. So has anything, in your opinion, changed over the past decade when it comes to how we manage the development of monocropping with oil palm plantations and even fruits like durian? Everybody loves their musang king, right?
Yeah.
So there's huge plantations, So what are the repercussions as a result of deforestation due to the setting up of these huge plantations?
Well, oil palm, if it is just conversion from former rubber or cocoa, whatever, no problem. But the problem is when you take virgin jungle, convert. I mean, the Malay word is cuci mangkok, or the English word is basically clear cut, and you convert that into oil palm plantation, and that would be a huge impact. Not only on the biodiversity, but on the hydrology, everything. Because basically, even rubber it have lot of pluses, because rubber basically can be grown with lot of beluga around it and still be productive. The only thing is the management will be a lot harder. The British way is basically to make it rows and rows of rubber. But for oil palm, they cannot do that. Too many bushes between two beluga-like situation, and your production, your fruits will be very low. That's why for conversion, even now with musang king, well, they say, okay, let us plant musang king. They have forest, okay, cut down, and they cannot grow durian between the other trees. They have to really cut that and make it, like you said, a monoculture without anything in it, basically cleared of everything, and that's negative for both biodiversity, and especially in my field is basically on water resources, the water quality and also water quantity, not just one, both. Because one thing we know, that's oil palm also takes up water more than any other forest trees, basically. So undeniably is a very important crop. I won't say it's a bad crop, but the thing is, how do we manage it? A lot of time we were talking about how many percent Malaysia have forest. The thing is, they use average. 60%, 70%. In actual truth, we are getting less and less year by year, especially in Peninsula. In Peninsula, when we talk to expert on forestry, I mean, whether on the record or off the record, we say, in Peninsula, our forested area, I mean, not considering what I call it, plantation forest and all that, maybe about 30%, something like that. We are getting less and less. Maybe through the years, more and more will be clear cut and planted with oil palm. And recently we heard in Terengganu, Hutan Simpang Belara, which is very close to Kuala Terengganu, already a few years back, already been de-gazetted, Hutan Simpan, basically. And then the state had the right, the state government say, okay, de-gazetted, now ready to be planted with oil palm. The only thing is, as far as I know, there is no EIA yet. That's a clue. When they put in the EIA, will indicate that they want to try to clear cut. But the intention is already there. The only thing is the process, or the final process of EIA has not been carried out yet. After that, clear cut, 100% oil palm.
Doctor, I'm going to move us towards some of the communities affected by what's happening around them, who are living in their environment. And you have obviously had a lot of experience working with the indigenous people and rural communities who are
Yeah.
in many of these parts where
Yeah.
the environment is playing a major part in their daily lives. And
Mm-hmm.
what we know is that they've suffered terribly due to the restrictions placed by the movement control order, and we still
Yeah.
don't know whether COVID-19 has spread into these communities. But we do know that several villagers have actually retreated into the jungle to isolate themselves from contact with the outside world, and something that's been done as a
Yeah.
form of protection.
Yeah.
But the sources of revenue, especially for Orang Asli farmers, they're selling serai, petai, and rubber. They've all dried up because of the need to restrict movement, and it's incredibly harmful for the people there, where it's caused tremendous suffering and hardship. So, knowing what you know, what's happening over there to the people who you have been working with, has, in your opinion, anything changed so far? And how can we provide them with support and help?
Alhamdulillah for the Orang Asli, as far as I know, with my contact within Jakwa and also within some of the communities in Pahang, the Bate and all that, and also the Semak Beri and as well as Temia, both in Kelantan and in Perak. Basically, we want to talk Orang Asli into two different communities. The settled one, the one that not so settled. So the Temia basically settled. They didn't run back into the jungle, whatever, but they put barriers to strangers, outsiders cannot go in. So basically, as far as I know from KKM report, there is no Orang Asli being infected by COVID-19. But the community in like the Bate from Kampung Cangkong in Sungai Keniam, this basically Taman Negara, and also in Hulu Sat, some of them receded back to the jungle for a while. But now they're coming back to their villages. But still, some of the kampung, this kampung Temia, kampung, they still, even with the help of the forestry department, they put roadblocks. So not just anybody can go in. But NGO been entering and bringing food for them. So don't worry about the food. They are not starving. Basically, other than the food they can get from the jungle, the ubi, the fruits, whatever from the jungle. Part of their hunter-gatherer skill. Other than that, we brought many NGO, even Jakwa, brought in rice and all the standard food items, the oil, the milk, whatever, the sugars, whatever. They are there. Many stages. Every one or 2 weeks, some NGO going in, bringing in. Being one organization that I work with, NGO, Sahabat Jariah Malaysia, keep doing that, but not in Kuala Lumpur alone, not in Lembah Kelang alone, but it's also into Royal Belum, also in, I think this weekend, they'll be, and last weekend they entered Sungai Tembeling again to bring the food to them. So no worries about the food.
That's great to hear, Doctor, because we have been worried about these communities, especially knowing that they're isolated, but also what has happened in the environment could also affect them being able to sustain themselves. So I'm glad to hear that from your contacts and your information that they are being assisted and they themselves are being able to isolate themselves.
Yeah,
so
I like to add that compared to what's happening to the Amazonas state in Brazil, a lot of the indigenous people over there are being affected right now. So Brazil have a problem because the barrier already been broken. It's inside the community already. So inside this close-knitted people, when it goes in, then it is basically very hard to control. So Alhamdulillah, we are a lot better.
That's great news.
Yeah.
That's really good news, Doctor. I just want to take up some questions that have been coming to us from the feed that's online. You have a lot of fans from the Faculty of Forestry and Environment, UPM, Doctor. So one of the questions that's asked here is, what is the method used in Malaysia to recover contaminated rivers from toxic waste, and where is it being channeled?
Well, I'm not sure any rivers have gone through when you say about toxic waste, but when we say the river is the only is polluted, and we want to rehabilitate.
I think.
Sungai Kim, that will take time, Sungai Kim, because the watershed is basically industrial area. But we have seen urban rivers that try to be recovered or rehabilitated. Basically, right in Johor, we have Sungai Seget right in the middle of Johor Bahru, but I'm not sure about the success rate. Okay, and we have done in the Klang Valley, the River of Life, and that one also the success rate is not 100% because still the class that they want to achieve is not achievable yet. Although they spend 1.4 billion, not M, 1.4 billion Malaysian ringgit, and that one is still questionable. They have not reached the targeted river class that they wanted to do. So this kind of rivers, as long methodology is that you ensure that you know the sources, you reduce the sources of pollution, whether the point source and non-point source pollution. By doing that, then slowly the river will recover. You take away the sediment from the bottom, the polluted sediment. Well, it takes time. Well, Singapore have done it with Sungai Singapore. Took them, during the days of Singapore river recovery, took them 10 years. And during those time, they spent, 100 million Sing dollar? And our rivers also can go through the process. I mean, it won't be cheap. It won't happen overnight. But with the NIA, when we want to do something, we do it right. Put the money where your mouth is. We can clean rivers, inshallah.
Well, let's go along the theme of rivers and water. Now, we know that these resources are under the federal constitution a state issue. So the problem here is that as a result of that, you have different states having different ways of them managing their water. When you go to Kedah, it's different, Kelantan is different, Selangor is different, Perak, Sabah, Sarawak. So one of the problems is there is a lack of unity or standardization on how they approach these issues. So we have a question from one of our viewers asking, is it better to try to unify or make it centralized in terms of how we manage water? Because water has become a national security issue, basically, right? And you just said it yourself, right? How important it is. So is it better for one centralized management, or is it okay the way we're doing it right now?
Well, the thing is, when you want for the federal to control water resources, then you have to change the constitution. That's for sure. I'm for that. But the thing is, even in the present situation, when you work together, it can be done. For example, now, if I can, I want to explain.
Go ahead.
Sungai Muda, my home state. Basically, I have a kampung over there. For Sungai Muda management, the water is being used for irrigation, for drinking water, for Penang, for Kedah itself, and also for Perlis. But everybody is asking for Kedah to manage. That's not possible. You want our water, but you do want to share the responsibility. I've been asking this. Penang people might be mad at me. I don't care. I mean, because I'm talking the truth. Give some money every year. Let you also be part of the board of directors to manage Sungai Muda. I mean, how to ensure that we reduce the pollution. We reduce the logging to ensure that your water resources is intact for the next generation and so on. But please, like I said, put your effort and your responsibility and plus the money where your mouth is. You don't just, please take care of Sungai Muda. We're drinking it downstream. No. It doesn't work that way.
So how do you manage to balance? How would you advise a government who's trying to think about logging as a major source of income, and then also balancing the needs of environmental protection for the purposes of safeguarding, say, water supply, or even things like, the possibility of a tsunami, even for some of those states who are closer with mangrove groves living in that area. So, how would you advise states who are trying to think about managing or balancing these resources? Because it's easy to talk about it in a university, but when you talk to some of these politicians, you talk to governments, they're saying, where's the money going to come from? How are you going to compensate? And
I understand that.
You said it yourself, put the money where your mouth is. So
Your mouth,
how do
yeah,
we go
true.
about doing this?
No, I mean, other than Kedah, I'm working in Johor for a long time. Actually, I was working with the present MB, Datuk Engineer Yang Amat Berhormat Engineer Hasni Mohamed, Datuk Hasni Mohamed, the present MB of Johor for many years before, because he was ex-co and all that. The thing is, we already we have a forum, Johor Water Forum, set together. One of the things is we have to be really truthful, ikhlas about our work. The thing is
Niat, right?
Are you willing to do whatever that we ask you to do? We can sit together. And in UTM, we have experts. We have many experts. Other universities, sit down together. We help you. I mean, we can advise for you what to do and what not to do. I mean, we have what we call the Water Council, where we sit down and discuss. Not just politician talking. We need the expertise people in forestry, people in water resources, people in whatever field that you young relevant water in field that's relevant. Sit together and discuss what to be done. Sungai Muda also the same. We can do that in every state. Discussion of what can be done, and only by doing that we can move more longer term, not 5 years. We're talking about 50 years, 100 years for our future generation. Because even Sungai Johor is basically have to be managed well. If not, the pollution will increase more and more for Sungai Johor, which is feed the water of both Singapore and also the most of South Johor.
But Doctor, you highlighted the importance of having a dialogue for experts to be able to advise state governments and, most importantly, developers who are actually wanting to put into place a kind of project that may affect the environment around them, especially ecosystems which are fragile. And there's a lot of emphasis on consultation, especially the communities affected by these projects, like Orang Asli and rural communities. But let me ask you, and I don't want you to be cynical about it, I want you to be just pragmatic and realistic with me about it, which is how much consultation actually happens, and how seriously are the inputs from such processes really taken into consideration by the decision and policymakers?
I think we have to go back to the process of EIA, especially detailed EIA. When we talk about detailed EIA, then you have socio-economic impacts and all that. When we talk about socio-economic impact, we don't talk just Orang Asli. Whatever the community nearby or within certain 5-kilometer radius of project, you have to consider. You have to study them. You have to have their opinion. What are their concern about their present livelihood and their future generation and all that. So the consultation methodology is already there. The only thing is the listening part. That one, I'm not 100% sure. Maknanya, it depends maybe on certain projects. Certain project, maybe the 100% they will listen. Some maybe they ignore. That one, I cannot give my opinion because I'm not very sure of but the thing is, the process of detailed EIA, when you have the socio-economic impact be considered, they have they have a methodology whereby they have to interview a minimum number of the population. I think that's why the EIA is a necessary tool to me.
So the EIA can be a vehicle for us to impose a framework of consultation for the surrounding communities. Yeah. So how can they help the government then in maintaining biodiversity in their immediate surroundings? How do you recommend that they participate? Is it participation in the EIA? What if there's no EIA? How can
if you have no EIA, you don't have. But when you're talking, the thing is, if you're talking about in the urban setting, I mean, development in urban setting, maybe you have educated people that might put input. But when you have EIA in the community, whereby suddenly you have project right in the middle of Orang Asli community that only maybe 90% uneducated, then anybody can cheat, basically. So the EIA itself is basically a process whereby it open up. And for me and you to know about what's going on. And for us NGO to fight for the right of for the local indigenous community.
So if basically, we need to make use of the EIA process in order for us to So we have to believe in it. We have to make use of it, and most importantly, speak out on these issues.
Basically a good tool. NEIA is a good
Mm.
tool. The only thing is it might be abused by certain people.
Okay. But let me ask you, we're coming to the end of today's show, Doctor. I'm going to ask you, what are the two states which, in your opinion, the two states in Malaysia which you feel are the worst in managing the environment, and two which have done very well? What are the lessons that we can learn from those who did well, and what can we improve on?
On the first one, I like to defer that because I cannot name. It's about even, so
Really?
many. Yeah, many.
No.
I cannot name one is the worst one. But for the good one, with a good try, I would say, for example, Selangor, they stop logging. And they're taking care of water resource, they have luas. Luas is have basically what I call it, helping Department of Environment in taking care of the water resource. When we complain about luas, about pollution, the next day they'll go and check on that. That one, I have to give credit to what I call Selangor. But as of, you talk about biodiversity, only 3 states now that willing to have what I call it enactment to take care of wildlife and also their forest. Johor, number 1, and they have the Johor State Park Corporation, which start state park, take care of Selai, Peta, National Forest, and later emulated by Perak to have their own enactment, to have their state park, to take sure that the royal bloom is taken care of. And the new one, I hope will be launched soon, is Terengganu. But Pahang, nothing yet. Not even a whisper. So, well, make your judgment on that. I mean, at least some states are trying to do something. Yeah.
No,
for the worst one, I cannot say, because it's about spread even. This one wrong on this side. Sabah, Sarawak have positive on one side, they have negative on the other side. So I defer judgment on that.
Well, I will definitely take you on that, because I can tell you the examples that you've given are positive examples on how we can learn from and actually improve. Especially, I think you mentioned Selangor just now. I think commercial logging has been banned since 2010, which is 10 years ago, and that's quite a big thing. When
you have to look at luas. Luas is a very. I have to give accolades to luas because of the work they have done. Because another state that's supposed to follow, basically Johor, is doing very well with their Bakaj. Bakaj is basically the counterpart of luas in Selangor, and they are now putting more people to work and making the departments bigger, and they are doing a lot of work trying to control water resources in Johor.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Doctor. This has been a great discussion this evening. You've given us a very hopeful message for us to end our session this evening. Thank you, Doctor, for being such a great guest.
Thank you, Azrul. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that ends this evening's segment discussing developments in the environment issues in Malaysia. Please tune in to the Bahasa broadcast at the same time on Thursday night, where we continue this conversation with Associate Professor Dr. Haliza Abdul Rahman. This is Azrul Khalib signing off. Good night, everyone.
Good night.